It's the Shatkin First Down Post-Draft Recap Show, presented by Dr. Todd Shatkin and the Aesthetic Associate Center, with your hosts, Rich Gaenzler and Dr. Jared Shatkin, with special guest, Bills alum Stevie Johnson. Now, from the Shatkin Sports Network studios in Amherst, here are your hosts, Rich Gaenzler and Dr. Jared Shatkin.
Welcome, everybody, to the Shatkin First Down Buffalo Draft Recap. It's not your normal show title, but great to see you on the other side of the camera. And, of course, great to see my partner, Dr. Jared Shatkin. How has your offseason been, my friend?
It's been a good offseason. I will say, finally the weather is starting to get a little better. I've got a couple golf rounds out there. And, I started playing hockey again. I started a men's league. It's been fun. So you're going to see a different, more athletic Dr. Jared this upcoming season, hopefully, for the Shatkin First Down show.
Are you a Todd Marchand kind of guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Mix it up.
Yeah.
You're a rat.
Exactly. He went to my middle school. So, yeah.
There you go.
Definitely.
Perfect. All right. So we're here to talk about the draft. And before we get into the first couple of rounds and kind of break down the players that the Bills selected, obviously one of the big topics of conversation for the Mafia and the Bills. And by the way, Stevie Johnson is going to be joining us as a special guest. He had a great Mafia event this past week at Electric City with Adam Schefter. So we thank him in advance for coming on the show post. At any rate, one of the big topics of conversation was, speaking of, no wide receiver, well, I shouldn't say no, but a late round draft pick wide receiver, and everybody up in arms, and Brandon Beane kind of screaming at the morning guys on WGR about, why do you think it's crazy we didn't take a wide receiver? So we'll start with you. What's your take on the whole thing about wide receiver, and did we need one? I think we talked off mic before we went into the segment about how you thought, class actually wasn't really that great and not like good enough to actually trade up and get somebody, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that the class was so strong defensively that you couldn't miss out on picking defense in the first 3 rounds because you were going to get a talent that, could start and potentially be a star in this league with your first couple round picks. And then after that, to me, the wide receivers kind of went down. I don't think that there was as much talent this year in the wide receiver class as there was last year. So, no, I don't think it's odd that they didn't address wide receiver until late in the draft. But I do think that there is a place where you can argue there needs to be a little more firepower at the wide receiver position. I know Brandon Beane's argument is perfectly, makes a ton of sense, 30 points a game. Where did we struggle? We struggled defensively. To me, we still, though, at the end of the game, when we needed a 4th down, we did not have that number 1 receiver to me that could get open. So I don't think it's about the fact that we need to add to the wide receiver position as much as it is as we need to start looking critically at guys like Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid this season. Yeah,
for sure.
I think they need to step up for the Bills to get to a place where they can really spin the ball offensively. And, we're not talking about them losing regular season games because at this point, most people expect the Bills to win 11 to 12 games during the regular season anyway. But it's that late postseason games versus the Chiefs when you have to assume that when Josh Allen has the ball late in the 4th quarter, you should be able to go down and score.
So what I would say to the people that said, we got to get a air quote, game-breaking receiver. We had that for 4 years with Stephon Diggs with 100-plus catches every year and over 1,000 yards and didn't win a Super Bowl. So that would be my argument to them, is that you had that chance, right? Now, in terms of Joe Brady's offense, and he wasn't the guy running the offense then, right? But in his offense, it is everybody eats. And that's why guys like Matt Collins, and I'd be willing to go to anybody and to have them admit to me, and with a God-honest truth, but you hand on a Bible, you're telling me you thought Matt Collins was going to be as important to that offense as he was last year? Nobody said that when the Bills got him. They said he was going to be a great special teams guy and a nice addition to the offense, but nowhere near as important as he was in the end. So I'll circle back. Credit to Brandon Beane for getting Matt Collins and know what he could be in this offense. You got to also remember, they draft for the offense. They're not drafting for size and athleticism. They're drafting for guys that fit. And I think that's what's really important. I think what people need to remember. Okay, so we've gone a little bit long on this whole thing about receiver and whether or not they need him or not. I think we would all agree. And look, Elijah Moore came in for a meeting. They're probably going to get another free agent wide receiver to add to the core, I would think.
Right, and I think where they did add in free agency was a separator like Josh Palmer.
Sure.
So they're listening, and they're trying to improve their offense. So it's not as if we didn't add anything to the wide receiver position offensively. Josh Palmer has had some pretty good years in the NFL, and he is a pretty good route runner, especially against press coverage. But I don't think it's an argument that can't be made.
Sure.
Is all I'm trying to say.
And I would say, to your point, Keon Coleman was hurt for a number of games last year. So let's see him when he's got a full season under his belt. Let's see him when he's got a full offseason under his belt. And you can't ever judge a draft by 1 year, right? It's longevity. You want to get that guy to that 5-year contract, right? So let's relax.
Exactly.
We've won 5 straight divisional championships, folks. We're not the Sabres in 14 years drought-wise, right? Let's relax and let's let it play out. All right, we'll take a break. We'll get into the rounds and the picks from this year's draft as we return on the Shatkin First Down Bills Draft Recap.
Hi, I'm Dr. Todd Shatkin here with Hall of Fame running back Thurman Thomas.
My family and I have been coming to Dr. Shatkin's dental office for years. The office is beautiful and the staff is outstanding.
Thanks, Thurman. It's been an honor for me to take care of you and your family.
For a Hall of Fame smile, go where the pros go. Dr. Todd Shatkin at the Aesthetic Associates Center.
Call today for a free consultation, 839-1700.
RV shoppers, Myers RV invites you to shop over 100 brands of travel trailers, fifth wheels, toy haulers, and motorhomes from all the leading manufacturers. Myers RV is the largest family-owned RV dealer in the Northeast with over 2,000 new and used RVs in stock. Right now, all remaining 2024 models are being offered at drastically reduced prices. Myers RV has 3 convenient locations in Rochester to serve you. Just a quick trip east on the 90 to save you thousands. Online at MyersRVs.com. Go Bills!
Welcome back to the Shatkin First Down Bills Draft Recap. Rich Gaenzler, Dr. Jared Shatkin. Let's get into the draft. In the first pick, of course, the Bills take it 30 in that first round. Maxwell Hairston, who seemed to be like the biggest cheerleader at the draft, right? He was seated right near the door when everybody walked out onto the stage, and everybody that got drafted ahead of him, he's like, "What's up? Congratulations, let's go." Fun guy, obviously. Looks like a culture type guy that is going to fit in really well with the Bills.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think that the Bills do look at something like that when they draft players, especially high-round talents like that, because Maxwell Hairston, to me, was my favorite game-breaking cornerback in the draft, a guy who can run 4.28. The good thing is the Bills got to pick the guy that they wanted to pick. There were other guys on the board that they could have went with, but this was definitely a guy that fit with the culture, and Brandon Bead recognized right away that that was the guy they wanted to pick.
Yeah, for sure. Trey Amos was there. Will Johnson was still there, the kid out of Michigan who fell to the 4th round. I thought shockingly, but he had an injury issue, obviously. 3 pick-sixes in college. I think it's funny, though, too, when it comes to DBs, right? They obviously run 40s, and he ran the fastest at the combine at a 4.28, like you mentioned. But DBs don't run forward. Right? I mean, like, can we do something like a gauntlet drill where they're timed backpedaling and running sideways? I get it. The 4.28 combine number is fantastic because, let's face it, most of the times DBs, it's catch-up speed for them, right?
Yeah, but I think you saw it a lot of times in his college career where he did play catch-up on some pretty – I know there was a highlight around where he had Isaiah Bond that was beating him by about 5 yards, and he made that speed up and made a nice pass breakup. I think where that speed will come in handy is he will take the ball away from the other team. He's going to probably have a couple rookie mistakes where he's a little bit aggressive and he gets beat a bit, but the guy will take the ball away and get Josh Allen the ball back, like he said.
It'd be interesting to see how fast he can acclimate to that Bobby Babbitt defense and see if he can take that starting spot. I mean, Tre'Davious White is obviously here. Dane Jackson is back. Obviously, the 3 of those guys you would think are going to compete for that starting job opposite Christian Benford with Taron Johnson still in the slot. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays up. The Bills trade up in the second round of 41 and take T.J. Sanders, 6'4", 297 out of South Carolina. Kind of big guy, but more of a hands guy, right? He likes to swipe. He likes to shed blocks. 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 50 tackles total in 24. Good numbers, and a big athletic kid that can probably play that 1 or that 3.
Yeah, I think another thing about this pick is the Bills, again, were able to take the guy that they had probably at almost the top of their board because they got all the way up to pick number 41. You had guys like Darius Alexander on the board. You have maybe a guy that they would have taken late in the first round as well as an option. So I really like this pick, even though maybe TJ Sanders wasn't the highest on every single board. This was the highest on the Bills board, and they took their guy.
An edge rusher with a third pick in Landon Jackson from Arkansas, just a beast, 6'6", 264. He's basically a carbon copy of A.J. Epinesa. They're basically the exact same size. He reminds me a lot of him, maybe a slightly better athlete, but interesting to see what he can do. He had a 41-inch vertical at the combine, which is insane. So obviously an athlete, 16 sacks in his career, kind of an inside and out guy, can play either over a guard if he had to, or outside the tackle, or up against a tight end. Very versatile guy.
Yeah, and what I like most about him is the improvement he had when he came into college football till now. He became first-team All-SEC back-to-back years, and I think early on that was a guy you started to hear that the Bills had a ton of interest in. I almost thought they had interest with him in the first round at one point in the draft process, but Landon Jackson, I think, is somebody who's going to be super athletic. He's going to get his numbers, and he's going to really contribute to this pass rush.
You know what? Our next draft pick, Walker from Kentucky, he, with TJ Sanders, sort of reminds me of the Eagles model, right? Whether it's Davis or Carter in the middle and Milton Williams. Those two, why can't those two guys be those two guys? Like the Bills draft picks be those two guys for the Bills. Walker's massive, 6'7", 331, really good athlete, two-time team captain, 22 tackles for loss and 10 sacks in his career. I mean, this guy can do everything, and he can play anywhere across the line.
Yeah, and I also don't really think he's a guy that would have been there if he didn't have a back injury last year. 2023, he performed extremely well, and 2024 he definitely took a step back, but he had a back injury that probably slowed him down for the year. So I do like, this was my favorite pick in the draft because I think this is a guy that long-term can turn into a true starter, and you don't really find those in the fourth round all that often.
Jordan Hancock, the corner out of Ohio State, the Buckeye, 6 foot 195, super active guy. Again, it's going to be a broken record. Guy that does everything, right? He could play nickel. He could play special team. He could be a protector, in terms of a zone if he had to. Good in sort of like that short yardage window. That 10-yard kind of window. That's where he does his best work, but another nice pick, a guy who was rated higher than where the Bills drafted him.
Yeah, and you know what? I like that the Bills are picking multiple cornerbacks in this draft because it gives them a little bit of a backboard if one of the corners don't work out. Like Maxwell Harrison is a first-round pick, but so was Kyer Elam, and we ended up having one of the best six-round picks in history that year. So I do like Hancock. I think he's almost a little bit of a carbon copy of a Taron Johnson type. He can play the nickel. He probably can rotate a little bit into the safety spot as well. So I like how versatile they're getting in terms of their picks this draft.
You talked about, we in the opening segment, and we will, Stevie Johnson, talking a little bit about the wide receiver air quote controversy. I'm a bit surprised that the Bills in the fifth round took a blocking tight end. I mean, I would have thought you could have gotten that guy maybe in a later round or maybe as a non-drafted free agent. But Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech, they pick him, 6'4", 253. His comparison, if you're a Bills fan, is really Lee Smith. He is just salty, he's physical, and look, if Morris is gone in the end, he's going to be that guy that will assume that role.
I mean, if he's anything like Lee Smith, he's going to be a great locker room guy, and he's going to work extremely hard. I don't know too much about this guy. I'm not going to lie. I don't spend my time watching the blocking tight ends, but I think it's the fifth round. Why not throw a dart and take somebody you like throughout the draft process?
Yeah, last couple of picks, Dorian Strong in the sixth round from Virginia Tech. Again, another guy who was slated to be a fourth rounder, now in the sixth round, so another steal, if you will, for the Bills. 6'1", 185, 4'5", 40, 7 picks in 2 years at Va Tech. This is an amazing stat for him. In 2023, the second player in 10 years to have 300 coverage snaps and give up less than 10 catches and less than 100 yards. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, this could be your diamond in the rough of this draft. He plays a lot of man coverage, and I know that's something the Bills wanted to get better at throughout the season last year. So this is a guy that could come in and contribute pretty soon. And you don't have to have him contribute right away if he's a sixth-round pick. You can have him learn the ropes through Adai and the rest of the coaching staff and get to the point where they're comfortable playing him in the league.
Last two will go quickly because I know we're a little bit late. Chase Lunt, the tackle out of UConn, a huge kid. 6'7", 304, sort of in the Spencer Brown mold for the Bills. Could be a nice rotational guy. He's good in run blocking, but he can pass block as well. Very versatile. And then in the seventh round, here's your wide receiver, right? Caden Prather, 6'3", 204, 4'4", 640, West Virginia, then Maryland. My might be this year's Mac Collins. I mean, almost the same exact size, maybe even quicker than Mac. So again, maybe a late round diamond in the rough here.
Right, exactly. I think it's a guy who could probably make the team. I mean, that's all you're looking for in the 7th round is a guy who can make the team and contribute on special teams. So I think you probably can find that with a guy like Caden Prather. He had a really nice season in 23. 24, he had 600 yards receiving, and he definitely was behind Ty Felton in that area. But let's see what he could do. I mean, you got your receiver. It was a draft that was not real talented at receiver, so maybe any guy can come in and do a little bit of something. Pick a guy with some upside, some size, some speed, and see what he could do. 2
Kentucky Wildcats in this draft, 1 last year, and our next guest, a Kentucky Wildcat, drafted in, yes, the 7th round. Stevie Johnson, 3 years in a row, 1,000-yard receiver. Last guy to do that prior to Steph Diggs joins us next. On the Shatkin First Down, Buffalo Bills draft recap.
I am so happy with my experience that I had at I Smile Spas today. Got my teeth professionally whitened. I have months of results in less than an hour. No pain, seriously not even a sting. They're not sensitive. You leave with a kit to continue your whitening. Absolutely incredible. I'm so happy I ever did this. I can't stop smiling.
Western New York. Smile again with confidence. Call 43-SMILE today.
My self-esteem wasn't where it should have been because I was really, really self-conscious about my teeth. When I walked into Shatkin Dental, I was instantly ready for the residency program. I knew that that is what I needed. I needed the discount, I needed the dentist that was gonna fix everything. My self-esteem is already getting much, much, much higher just from starting the procedures.
Call Shatkin Dental Health today at 43-SMILE for quality dental care you can afford.
The great Stevie Johnson, joining us now. What's up, my man?
Man, what's going on, boys? Good to be on with you again, brother.
I want to fast forward now to the draft. So obviously, there were some Kentucky Cats, pun intended, drafted, including the first one, Maxwell Hairston. Have you personally, did the Bills talk to you about reaching out to the Kentucky guys and saying, hey, man, what's up? I'm one of you. I mean, have you reached out to Maxwell or Dion or any, those two guys?
No, not personally, but before seasons, like before their college season, you always have a little presence and showing that support that, hey, you're on your way, but you're really speaking as a collective team, though. You don't really know who's going to go where at the times, but when you see it happen and it's like you're aligned in that group from Kentucky to Buffalo, and you see the stardom that happens from those guys, from those schools. And I think it's pretty cool that, Bean is able to see that, and that Buffalo Bills staff is able to see the grit, and they're matching the grit with those players that's in the situations of a Buffalo player, trying to start from the bottom and grind and persevere and blue collar and, prove people wrong. That's the same thing with Kentucky. They're trying to prove people wrong. We're football, we're this and that, and, we're able. And you draft that guy and it's got the same mentality. You put them with other guys and you see what's happening. The elevation is happening 5 years straight, AFC championships, AFC East champions. Always that one game versus those guys in their red uniform. But what did we do? We got smarter. We got smarter seeing what dominated the Chiefs. And now we went loaded up on that D-line and, that defense. So I really love the vision of what the business suits are doing now.
One of the things, Stevie Johnson, that was sort of a firestorm was the radio guys, and Brandon Bean had it out the other day, and Brandon kind of was talking about, like, why are you guys always complaining about the wide receivers? We don't draft wide receivers, and why are you always this, that, and the other thing? And it got kind of crazy, but I think, obviously you're biased because you're one of them, but you are also testament to the fact that you don't have to draft a guy in the first or second round to find a good one. You were a 7th round pick, man, and you had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, and you weren't playing with Josh Allen. So, I mean, there you can find, and Brandon Bean, by the way, has been famous at finding super good players late in the draft, right?
Indeed. And not to mention what happened last year. We picked up an Amari Cooper in the middle of the season, and we seen what that did. And we didn't think about him joining our team from week 1 through whatever. So it really doesn't matter. And then let's speak on our first round draft, our second round draft pick last year. He did excellent, but did it get us over the hump and when we needed to? No, it didn't. But he's definitely a piece that can be solid for the future. We don't need to even have the conversation on what we didn't get. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about what we got and how we're trying to, dominate what may be our future when we face this quote unquote Chiefs. I'm just going to say the Chiefs because we've seen that the last 5 years. I'm not saying, who knows who's going to evolve this year to be in that race, but, I'm just speaking from the past and from history. And we've definitely evolved, and I think that's where being is. Like, we've seen what we've done when we draft these guys. Not to mention going DB route though, and that's something that's pretty special. I think that should have been spoke about other than a wide receiver because we got Josh Allen back there. We got, what I'm saying? We got a talented offensive line and some studs up front. So I don't see any issue with not drafting a wide receiver.
Yeah, I was going to say he's not wrong. Like, the Bills average 30 points a game. I mean, if you average 30 points a game for the season, you should win 15 games every year, right?
Absolutely. There's really nothing much to talk about, but I mean, I think it's cool that it did happen though, and I think a lot of people can respect it, and that's one thing about the Mafia. Even WGR, they not go complain and cry about it. Hey, he was doing. We understand it. We understand it. You understand. We got to do business and we got to get our, views up. And it is what it is. And that's what's special about the Mafia. We go keep it internal, but it's still family. We getting our message out and we showing that attitude.
We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for doing this.
One love. Take care, family.
Be well, my man.
Yes.
It means a lot to be able to work with my dad to continue this legacy that we have going on.
I had many implants. Once I got them, it was like the old me came back.
The changes you can make in such a short period of time in somebody's life, have somebody in the chair crying because they finally have a full set of teeth. And I think the only way to do it in that type of time period for that type of price is really the mini implant.
Mini dental implants can change your life too. Call us at 839-1700 for a free consultation.
Welcome back to the Shatkin First Down Buffalo Bills Draft Recap. Rich Gaenzler, Dr. Jared Shatkin. Glad you're here as football is now underway. Just, a week or so until the schedule comes out, which I know everyone's pumped about. Last year at Highmark before we go into the new stadium. Let's talk real quick about the free agents in the offseason and maybe why the Bills drafted how they did, with knowing Ogunjobi and Hoke were going to be out for the first 6 games of the year. That may have impacted how they drafted.
There is a chance. I also think it is just on the first 6 weeks of the season. I think those guys are going to come back when it matters. I think they wanted to get younger and more talented on the defensive line for the long term, and to me, that's why they drafted the way they drafted. I think this board has kind of been set for a while. I don't think free agency played too big of a role in it, but it doesn't hurt that we have 2 guys who are suspended for 6 games, and we definitely kind of addressed that during the draft.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about Trey White. We talked about Dane Jackson. They bring in a couple of punters because Sam Martin's gone, and Camarda and Robbins, who both have been in the league. Camarda with Tampa Bay, Robbins with Cincinnati. The only guy we haven't mentioned yet is Mr. Bosa. What do you think his upside is for this team? I know there's debate on can he still play. He's had his injury issues, and he's not been really reliable the last couple of years. What do you think?
Well, I think if he is at the top of his game, you're getting a guy who can get 12 to 15 sacks and can be one of the best players on this defense, absolutely. The thing is, I think we also have a luxury now where we have such a rotation in the defensive line that maybe you can kind of sit him down and keep him healthy until you really need him in the postseason. So it's a luxury signing, but it's a guy who's going to play a big role later in the season.
Let's talk about very quickly, I know we're a little short on time, but the division. I'll start with the Dolphins. They get Kenneth Grant, who I know a lot of Bills fans wanted. They got Jordan Phillips, another defensive tackle, so they're getting more stout in the middle of that D-line. Quinn Ewers late in the draft, which I thought was kind of interesting. O-line, safety, corner. But in terms of their veterans, Chubb back, Phillips back. They get Alexander Madison. Chop Robinson goes into his second season. And then they get Westbrook Akine from the Titans, who's a nice wideout. The Jets get an offensive tackle at 7 overall, and Membu. They get Mason Taylor, the tight end, Jason Taylor's kid. Cornerback, wide receiver, safety, of course, Fields comes over to be their quarterback. Josh Reynolds comes in. Noddy, Brandon Stevens, a nice corner, comes over from the Ravens to them. And they get a new starting center in Josh Myers from Green Bay. The team that I fear the most, sadly, is New England. They get Will Campbell in the draft. They get another tackle later in the draft. They get a wide receiver. They got Travion Henderson, who might have been the best running back in the draft. So now they're getting better up front for Drake May, and they're getting a receiver. In addition to a couple ex-Bills and Steph Diggs and Mac Hollins. You add Milton Williams, who we talked about earlier in the show. You add a pass rusher in Harold Landry. You got Spillane, who's a heck of a linebacker. Another offensive lineman in Morgan Moses. You get Carlton Davis on the back end, and you get Garrett Bradbury, who's been starting at center for Minnesota the last 3 years. They have reloaded for Mike Vrabel. I am nervous about New England.
They had a really good offseason, but they had a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of money to spend when you're a pretty bad team in the previous years. I'd say the team I'm most nervous about in the division is probably New England, but I'm not really nervous about any of these teams to win the division.
Right.
I think improvement-wise, I would look at the Jets as a team that's going to be improved in terms of their coaching. I think they're probably going to win some more games. They're not going to make those Jets mistakes, but I still don't think they have the firepower to compete with the Bills. The Miami's, I think they're the same team. I don't see them improving. I see them, if anything, getting worse. They're paying Chubb a ton of money to produce not very much, so I'm not too worried about the Dolphins.
Be very, very interesting how it all plays out. And, of course, we still have a couple of months till we get to training camp. And then, of course, exhibition preseason and the regular season. So much is going to happen between now and then. Can't wait. And we look forward to the 2025 season. As I mentioned, the final year at Highmark brings in so much excitement. And, look, I know the conversation's been had. And I don't think we're jinxing it by saying this. But, yes, the last year in Highmark, Super Bowl happens to be an hour from Josh Allen's birthplace, and we go into a new stadium raising a banner next year. Who knows? A lot to talk about between now and then, but we'll talk about it when we get to training camp and through all season long. We thank you for watching, and we got to thank our sponsors as well. Aesthetic Associates, Shatkin Dental, Dr. Todd Shatkin, and our new sponsor this year, Napoli's. For Dr. Jared Shatkin, sorry, that's your dad, I'm Rich Gaenzler. Thank you for watching the Shatkin First Down Buffalo Bills Draft Recap.
This has been a production of the Shatkin Sports Network.